So Uranus is thought of as the planet of sudden change. It's also associated with, I don't know if you'd agree with this, but the planet of genius, unexpected. Astrological interpretations associate Uranus with unconventional ideas, individuality, discoveries, electricity, inventions, revolution. It has that kind of like, it's almost like a lightning bolt energy. And I think I think Uranus is probably, it's hard to predict. It is this unpredictable energy.
So I agree with all of that. Uranus rules the sign of Aquarius. So then it would be in detriment in Leo. The outer planets, I think Uranus is considered exalted in Scorpio and in detriment in Taurus. However, Pluto still doesn't have an official sign of exaltation. And I think Neptune is debatable. So I would say even Uranus's sign of exaltation is still perhaps debatable, though it's now been over 250 years since it's been discovered. So there has been more time for observation. Before I even get into Uranus, I would like to do a quick little something to say about the outer three planets. So Saturn's orbit is roughly 30 years. Uranus's orbit is 84 years. Neptune is 165, I think, and Pluto is something like 240 or 250 years or something like that. So we've now, like distance-wise, gotten way further from the sun. Orbit-wise, Uranus will make one orbit over the course of an average person's lifetime, to where Neptune and Pluto will maybe make half or a third of an orbit over the course of an average person's lifetime. The outer three planets, as I understand them, are antithetical to the ego and conventional way of living. They create the impulse to transcend and evolve from where we've been. So in general, whether it's in the birth chart or in transit, they tend to be the biggest troublemakers. In my opinion, bigger troublemaker than Saturn or Mars or anything else. And the reason for that is they are all unconventional in their own way. They're all completely unconcerned with the desires and aversions of the ego. They move us to evolve and kind of connect with spirit and to become greater than what we've been in the past. And they have the outer three planets have their own way of doing it. And from what I've observed, it's by any means necessary. So very often where any of the outer three planets show up in the birth chart can, not necessarily, but sometimes do indicate trauma or some sort of a deep wound. And then in transit, very often will bring about some sort of upheaval, some sort of significant, very often unpleasant events, or not necessarily an event, but like a period of time that's very difficult and stressful. So as far as Uranus, I agree with everything you said to describe it. If you think about what I said about the Aquarius energy, Uranus is that, but in a more potent way. So the energy of Uranus, like intuitively, when I feel into it and when I connect with it, as in my own life, as well as when I'm doing a reading for other people, it's very unstable energy. In fact, I would say all three of the outer planets are unstable. So Uranus has this kind of erratic, like nervous quality. The energy is that of a revolutionary kind of, but maybe more like the rebel might be more appropriate. It does what it wants, and it doesn't like rules. It doesn't like convention. So wherever Uranus shows up in a person's birth chart will show where maybe your life has some sort of an erratic quality to it, particularly the house. The house that any of the outer three planets shows up in, according to many astrologers, and I tend to agree with it, is more significant than the sign. The reason being, it can show up in any of the 12 houses to where everybody who's born in your generation will have Uranus in the same sign. So there's less like variance regarding the signs that the outer planet happens to show up in. So yeah, Uranus will show where your life, the house that Uranus shows up in will show where your life may have an erratic quality, may be prone to sudden change. It may show where you have some sort of like different way of doing things, kind of outside of the box thinking. If Uranus is prominently aspecting a person's sun, they may like present as unconventional. If it's aspecting a person's Mercury, they may think and communicate in ways that are unconventional. If it's aspecting someone's moon, they may be somewhat erratic or unconventional in the home.
So would you say, as far as when people are looking at Uranus in their chart, I mean, would you agree with the statement, like if you have Uranus in the fifth house in Leo, which I think Leo rules the fifth house, maybe you'd have an unusual way of parenting if you had children, if you had Uranus.
Or maybe your child would be unusual. Yeah, either or both.
Okay.
Or yeah, perhaps even like having children will stimulate or activate your like unconventionality or eccentricities.
Yeah, I always think of this is, I guess, a current topic, but I think whenever I think of that Uranus energy, it's like that, like Elon Musk of, hey, I've got a new way of doing things and I'm going to do it my way, whether conventional or, I think that. And the other thing I would really kind of like, I always associate when thinking of Uranus, because I do remember there was some kind of Uranus transit, and then there was a volcanic eruption in Hawaii. And I just remember it was kind of like a very classic Uranus thing. But I always think of that idea of it being like a volcano, because it's like, at some point it's going to erupt, but you don't know exactly when, and nobody can really predict, even though we can all try to predict.
So yes, it very often when things like that happen, whether it's in the world or in a person's life, there's a Uranus transit that's active. However, every time there's a Uranus transit doesn't mean something like that's going to happen. What I've found to be the case is there's an energy of kind of feeling unsettled, unstable. And what's interesting looking at like planetary cycles, the Uranus midway point or the halfway point of its orbit is going to be when you're roughly like in your early 40s, somewhere between the age 40 and 45, which is very often, what you think of as like the midlife crisis, when people quit their job, leave their family, and do something that's kind of like, they did what? You know what I mean? Like you're quitting your job, like what the hell, like what's wrong with you kind of thing. And so it carries that energy of like I'm done. And especially if somebody's like not true to their heart, not true to their soul, when that Uranus transit comes through, a person's like this is it. I'm done. I'm out of here. So you see people like quitting the job and leaving the family because maybe they didn't want to have a family, or maybe they didn't want to work at that job in the first place, and they sucked it up. And then that Uranus midpoint, halfway point comes, and perhaps Uranus, I suspect the people who do that have Uranus prominent in their chart to begin with. Perhaps Uranus is like opposite their sun. So, the Uranus is also then transiting in conjunction to their sun and making an opposition to itself. And then they say, screw it, I'm out of here. I don't care. And that's very much the Uranus kind of energy. Yeah. And, the other part of Uranus is it tends to be adverse to emotion. So it's a very cerebral energy. It does not like emotional like exchanges. What's interesting, though, is it can be very emotional itself. So people with prominent Uranus, or maybe when they're getting a transit from Uranus, may be inclined to like have like meltdowns or be temperamental, and kind of like be inclined to like lash out at other people. But then if you get emotional with them, they're just like, oh, leave me alone. I don't want to deal with this.